Salman Prakarami, Head of Consulting at Gray Dawes Group. We're a specialist department which looks at market trends within the business travel industry, such as corporate strategy, supplier pricing and innovations, and traveller sentiment. We amalgamate this information, disseminate what's pertinent in order to provide recommendations for our corporate clients in regards to streamlining their travel programs. I asked our team within our analytical studio to produce an impact study on COVID-19 has had on our client booking behaviour. That has involved taking a benchmark of the 6-month period just before the pandemic. So we have classified that as September 2019 up until March 2020, just before lockdown was announced, and doing a comparative study against the last 6-month period, which we can qualify as March 2021 up until September 2021. The reason for this analysis is to review the most pertinent trends coming from the booking behaviour, look at the lessons that can be learned from that, and provide everybody here recommendations on how best to shape their travel program. A couple of key stats which really inspired this analysis was that firstly, 7 in every 10 clients of Gray Dawes in 2019 have now restarted booking travel, giving us an indication that travel bans are reducing and restrictions are easing within a corporate level. Also, in addition to that, we've seen a sharp uptick in terms of the number of transactions that have taken place, particularly even from the period of August to September. We've seen an increase of 21% in terms of the transactions there. So what we're looking to do here is to renew the focus, see what the changes are within the travel programs, and to be able to provide you with recommendations on how to navigate most efficiently in the changing landscape that we've seen post-COVID-19 and of course Brexit. First key trend in terms of booking behaviour is advanced purchase has halved from an average of 2 weeks to now 6 days prior to the point of departure. So this is undoubtedly can be attributed to the uncertainty from shifting border restrictions. Now, I'm anticipating and witnessing that border restrictions are stabilising in terms of the flux in change, particularly from a inbound to the UK perspective, where we've seen the abolishment of the traffic light system, and now it's a simplified process of go or no-go countries, which currently sit at just 7 countries. So from that perspective, we have stability, and I'm advising here as a result to increase your advance purchase to around 2 weeks in terms of your travel policies. There is a caveat, of course, because of our growing COVID case rates in the UK. We have seen, for example, Morocco being the first of the countries to retract their opening up their borders, and now we have a travel ban from inbound UK into Morocco. We have seen an announcement where the US is opening up to the UK travellers on the 8th of November, and of course Singapore opened up last week to UK travellers, and Australia plans to follow suit. The hope here, and at the moment it remains a hope, that those will be retained, and if we're going to see any stiffening in terms of restrictions due to our heightening COVID case levels, it will be more towards testing and traveller tracking as opposed to restrictions being in place. But while that uncertainty remains, I am not recommending booking any more than 2 weeks in advance for these countries. Another noteworthy trend is in the form of who is travelling in terms of the level in the business and for what purpose. So firstly, we're seeing a high level of senior management and middle managers travelling as opposed to the junior staff, where pre-pandemic there was an equal mix between those. And that's because that can be attributed to brainstorming sessions being held for internal purposes in order for businesses trying to orientate themselves in terms of corporate strategy post-pandemic. The majority of the meetings that have taken place in the last 6 months have been internal. In the last few weeks, we have seen quite a strong increase in meetings taking place with individuals outside of their organization. So that may be meetings with suppliers, meeting with clients or prospects. Now, my recommendation here is when deciding whether a meeting should be conducted face-to-face or over a digital platform, is to ask yourselves whether the meeting would materially impact business continuity. So, for example, whether the meeting is with a client or with a prospect or a supplier, those kind of meetings should really be done face-to-face, as there's been quite clear studies that indicate that meeting face-to-face greatly improves buy-in, and also in terms of making the process run much more productively and faster when you're meeting face-to-face as opposed to conducting it over a digital platform. Looking at hotel bookings, we can see that the average length of a trip has more than doubled. This is a result of corporates attempting to greater utilize less business trips but more meetings within those, or potentially by adding a leisure component to it. My recommendation here is to ensure that your program has great coverage in terms of apartment hotels that can be better utilized during longer stays. And in addition to that, making sure that your travel policy offers clarity in terms of what can be expensed when leisure is combined with a business trip. The positive in terms of these lengthier business trips is that because there's been heavy discounting, that there's not been a greater increase in terms of the total cost of the trip. I'm anticipating for hotels that discounting will continue into 2022, and therefore I'm recommending that you do not get bogged down by having too many corporate rates, fixed corporate rates into your program, and shift to dynamic offerings. The reason for dynamic pricing is these discounts are likely to continue into 2022 because, number one, hotels cannot shift supply as it's bricks and mortar, and number two, because of home working, discounting is likely to continue as demand for business travel in metropolitan cities in particular will continue to stay apace until the cultural shift of working from home changes, and that's unlikely to be in the next couple of years. Another essential policy tip here for hotels is to ensure that they're booked through your travel management company, and that's really to ensure that you can do a risk assessment and allow for a efficient approval workflow to be conducted through your travel management company, which will take a lot less time and be more conclusive than if they were to book direct. In order to identify whether hotel bookings are being made direct, a measure that you can take is to look at the number of overnight stays within air and rail journeys and car rental, and see if there's been a hotel that's been attributed to those bookings, and if not, explore why those reasons are taking place. Moving to the topic of rail, particularly the key trend here is in the European high-speed rail network, where prices have skyrocketed. This can be attributed to measures governments in France and Germany enforced when they bailed out these airlines during the pandemic, is that any flights that are less than 2.5 hours were to be reduced or removed, where a high-speed rail service can adequately service that route. My recommendation here is to ensure that you find a travel management company which can offer European rail content. Lastly, we focus on car hire, which has seen the fastest rate of recovery to the other travel segments. The reason for this is this can be linked to remote working, where we travel to meetings less often from a central destination and more often from urban locations that are not well served by rail. However, this surge in demand is putting a squeeze on limited supply, particularly in the US market. So if you need a car hire, I'm recommending booking that in advance, or alternatively, I recommend attempting to make your meeting in a central location that is served by rail. Okay, that's it for our breakdown on the impact of COVID-19 on corporate travel. I hope you have found our information insightful and our recommendations useful for your corporate programs. We will be conducting updated analysis every quarter, so in order to access those, please follow our consulting LinkedIn page. If you require any bespoke support or advice on ensuring that your travel program is ready to scale up and most cost effectively and time efficiently navigate through the changed COVID and Brexit environment, we are running a Get Set consultancy program focusing on updating your travel policy, approval process and supplier programs to assist with meeting with duty of care, your budgeting requirements and maintaining your business's continuity. Okay, so thank you very much for that, and I hope to speak to you soon. Until then, travel safe.